And if you would, if what I would like to know is how do you see this? What greater benefit does it serve for someone like Bolton or people like him to promote endless war? Who benefits from this?
Well, quite a few different people within the US in particular. We've got the industry, which was actually mentioned by name by President Eisenhower, the military-industrial complex. And we know in America, those of us who observe American politics, Citizens United, I think it was in 2012, money in politics is a fact. It's a reality. And a lot of these very hawkish neoconservative Republicans who should be thoroughly discredited by now, actually have very close links with these think tanks, with these organizations, with these arms manufacturers.
Yeah, so what we could say about John Bolton, his book, it's basically an addition to an existing narrative to promote war, to promote endless war, to serve the interests of producers of weapons, because they benefit from war. It's not the people of America who are benefiting. It's not the average, Joe the plumber who is benefiting from this.
So Joe the plumber is paying for it.
Yeah, and Joe the plumber's son is paying for it, and his grandson is paying for it.
Exactly, because these government borrowing, budget deficits, all of this sort of thing. Taxes get cut, especially by Republicans. Spending on war goes up, and the interest on those payments, well, they go on all the way until Joe's great-grandchildren, and that's not an exaggeration. That's an actual fact.
And what's interesting is that those people who are paying to finance endless war in America, they are also constantly being bombarded with propaganda to believe that they are being threatened and that they might get nuked by Pakistan or North Korea or whatever. So they force them to go out and vote for these people, and then once they vote, politicians come into office who will eventually use those working class Americans' money to enrich all these powerful entities behind the curtains, who are actually the real benefactors of war.
Yeah, and I mean, let's just also bear in mind the glaring irony, right? That's literally right in everyone's eyes. I can't believe more people don't see it. Black Lives Matter, Sangar, right?
Yeah.
And what is the objection to that? All lives matter.
Yeah.
But do they really?
Exactly.
Do Afghan lives matter?
No, they don't. Obviously, that's not relevant to them. That's not relevant
because I mean, the dehumanization, the propaganda, and everything that goes into this, the element, what character, and you mentioned, I forgot in which podcast it was, Orientalism, the element of irrationality ascribed to Muslims. Why is that done? Ascribed to Muslims. Why is irrationality ascribed? Because human beings instinctively will view animals as being irrational and driven by primal instincts, primal desires. Okay? And by stripping people of their rationality, what you do is you dehumanize them. You make them no better than animals. These are fanatics. They are angry. If they get a bit of power, if they get a nuclear weapon, well, they may nuke us, they may nuke themselves. Who knows? And that is it's done very deliberately too.
Yeah, exactly. That's the essence of their mindset. That's how they think, and this is why it's also important that you see so many people now commenting on John Bolton's book. The Afghan Americans some people from the Kabul bubble, they have all issued an opinion about this book and about Donald Trump. Some of them see this book as some sort of vindication for them that Trump isn't actually sane, and his current policy of what they call appeasing Taliban, that this is actually misguided.
That's actually goes back to the Second World War, where Neville Chamberlain signed the Munich Agreement. He came back, and then Nazi Germany broke the treaty, and war broke out anyway. So the word appeasement is a very loaded word. And it's no surprise that that's the word that they use, because the same thing was used with regard to Saddam Hussein in the Gulf War. We can't appease, the Hitler, Saddam Hussein is like Hitler, the Taliban are like Hitler, Al-Qaeda are like Hitler, Erdogan is like Hitler,
But Trump is not really, like Hitler. Trump is not like Hitler. Only when he decides to pull out of Afghanistan, then he becomes Hitler. What I noted is that people comment about Bolton, about what he has written. The same people who comment on this matter are also people who tweet Black Lives Matter, or they support the protests in America. And then it's always so, it's not new, but it's still very confusing to see people, on the one hand, thinking that this book is somehow a vindication for them, but at the same time, they're also the people who support all sorts of political activism in America. They don't see any relation to their current stance and what's happening in America. It's very confusing, and that's why I think it's important for most Afghans who are conscious, who are politically conscious, and who are aware of this, that they become involved and that they speak out about this current situation. Like, for instance, if we say we have now a great opportunity to establish lasting peace in Afghanistan, we need to become aware of the fact that the people who are arguing in favor of war, the people who are arguing in favor of continuation of war in Afghanistan, they have a vested interest in war, and people like Bolton, they expose a certain mindset that exists in America. But we have the same problem in Afghanistan. We have people with the same vested interest in war in Afghanistan, and in order to expose this, we need to have this conversation, and in future, inshallah, in our podcast we will have more guests, people who will discuss this aspect of war in Afghanistan and how it serves the interests of people who have actually nothing to lose there. They're not suffering from the war. They're not losing.
And that's the point. It's that Afghanistan gets relegated in the discussion. And this isn't like a cry for sympathy or whatever, because, Syria got the limelight for years, but the response of the international community was basically muted, okay? But, with regards to Afghanistan, 4 decades of conflict, it's natural that people will sort of start to become desensitized to it. But that figure that I wrote out, that I read out, 7,100 to 7,400 bombs dropped in Afghanistan in 2019, okay? Now, if we just think about that for a second, that's almost, if there are 365 days in a year, and 7,400-ish bombs were dropped, that is almost, if not, that is, that is more than 20 bombs a day. 20 bombs in a day for an entire year. And that was the most that has ever been dropped by the US military in Afghanistan. It's more than was dropped even during the surge, when the Obama administration flooded the South and the Southeast and other areas with soldiers, where there was something like 120,000 serving American personnel. Afghanistan had, in that same period, probably had more deaths than Syria. Okay? War was raging. Okay? Despite Ashraf Ghani telling the EU not to send refugees back because it's safe and there's no war. No, war was very real, but the response to it was muted.
Exactly. So let's wrap this up. Okay, this book is obviously going to be mentioned a lot in the upcoming few days, obviously also in Afghanistan, but inshallah we will have 2 more episodes very soon where we will be discussing 2 more books about Afghanistan. So to our listeners, to our viewers, everyone who is listening and watching our shows, again, thank you very much for your support.
As we got to 300 subscribers on YouTube.
300, I still can't imagine 300. Yeah. Why it's going so slow? We're putting out so much content. People are not subscribing. What's going on? What's this?
Well, I mean, I guess, now that we're on Spotify, we're on Google Podcasts, we're on Google Podcasts, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on all of the main podcasting platforms.
iHeartRadio, we're on iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio. Okay.
We're on Stitcher.
Yep. So now
we're on Deezer.
All of those. Now we're on all of those, and that's all down to the support of viewers. Okay. We're also, you also have a responsibility to us to also subscribe to the YouTube channel. So yeah, that was
and with your support, we will grow and we will expand and we will produce more content. Obviously, as I said, we're going to discuss 2 more books in upcoming 2 episodes. Very important books. I'm not going to reveal everything about it, but you
2 very
have
important
to,
people.
Yeah, you have to subscribe to our YouTube channel because both books are written by people who have actually fought on the front line in Afghanistan, and they're going to tell their stories. Therefore, you need to subscribe. You need to follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and people who can and want, you can become a Patreon. Our Patreon page is below here. You can see it, the link. Go to our Patreon page. We have explained why we need your support, and we are currently raising money to buy new equipment. We have already received some money from our supporters. With that money, we have made investments. As you can hear, our voices are now actually not as horrible as they used to be. So we are doing incremental improvements and we are trying to improve and become a real professional outlet, and we can't do it by ourselves. Like, we are investing lots of hours, energy, doing research, getting people, inviting guests, preparing interviews, reading books. We're doing all of that while we have other responsibilities. Like, it takes quite a lot of time to do that. And while we're doing that, if you think that the work that we are putting out is valuable, if you think that the work that we are doing currently, if that is something that you want to be part of, and if you want to be involved in this project, you can do that by, obviously, word of mouth, telling people about us so that we get more audience, more subscribers, more viewers. But you can also donate. You can become a Patreon. You can do a one-off donation via PayPal. The link of PayPal is also here. So get involved, and if you have any tips, suggestions, if you have like an idea for a guest, someone who we could invite to our show and interview, contact us. Obviously, we are active on all social media platforms. You see the links above here, and you can contact us, and then we can have a discussion and see what we can work out together. So that was my final message for this show. Do you have any last comment?
No, I don't think I do.
No, nothing. Okay.
Sorry for building up the suspense. No, I think you said what you needed to say. Thank you to everyone that subscribed. Once again, a massive thank you to those that donated. And at the end of the day, if you don't support us, who will? Because the people that fund people like John Bolton are not going to fund us. That's just
the Mercer family is not funding us. You know.
Exactly. So,
and
that is why you had to cope with very bad audio and all of that at the beginning. It's because those guys are not helping us. But the good thing is that our consciences remain clear, because we don't want to be helped by those guys. We want to be helped out by you. And you guys have so far been excellent. Please continue. And I think that's it, Sangar, right? Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.